What's going on, gamers? Today we're back with a little bit more Anvil Vault Breakers, and what I'm going to be going over is what relics you should be looking out for on your travels in order to make the most powerful build. So if you're stuck, not sure which relics to pick up, then stay tuned. That's coming up next. Welcome back, you guys and girls. As always, for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, then why not hit that subscribe and bell icon? I'll bring you all the latest and greatest in content, hints, tips, guides and builds, and just some fun gameplay and reviews of upcoming games on the Xbox. But for today I'm here to show you a little bit of what I think are some of the best and most powerful relics to pick up in Anvil Vault Breakers. These right here will really set you apart from the crowd and will make life a lot easier for yourself. Now at the start, if you have managed to complete all of the galaxies, of which I'm still stuck on the third one currently, but there has been an update yesterday, so fingers crossed I should clear that one soon. But what will happen is that will unlock some slots for you to equip a few relics from the start. You can equip one legendary and the rest is down to your preference. As you can see here, I've managed to get 3 out of the 4 slots because I've done the first and second galaxy. The more you can put on, the more powerful you'll be at the very start of your venture. But what one should you be looking out for? So if we go over to our database right here, it's got pretty much every single one in the game. And some of them are a lot more powerful than what you'd imagine. These are the ones that I would definitely say are well worth your time. So first off, and one you may well overlook because it's just a regular standard relic, but these ones right here that do the damage to the certain types. So for example, you've got burning, just there frozen, then you've got petrified, and just over here you've got shocked. When you're using your Vault Breakers, they're all going to be using abilities and such that do that to the enemy. For example, if you're using Elsa, you're going to be doing freeze damage. If you're using lightning, for example, which is a good one because I'm on shocked, you're going to be doing a lot of lightning damage. These right here boost that damage significantly if an enemy is under that kind of status effect. So as you can see on the right hand side, it's exactly the same for all of the other types, but it's 50, 100, 150, 200 and a whopping 250% damage increase against shocked targets and 90% damage increase against targets with any active status effect. Now 250% is absolutely massive, and it's probably one of the biggest damage sources you're going to get in the game if you're able to get all 5 of those. So remember, if an enemy is going to be under that status effect, say for example they're under lightning or they're under flame, or if they're under both, you may well want to pick up some of these in order to make your build hit extremely hard, especially after you've used certain moves. Next up, and an absolutely amazing one for any gun build. If you're after a gun build that does massive damage and you've got a gun that isn't one of the charge up types, this right here is ridiculously powerful. Infinite magazine means that you'll be able to shoot forever without reloading, so you're going to have no downtime on your DPS. If you've got a lot of crit damage, if you've got a lot of range damage and you're using a really nice weapon with boosted weapon damage, this right here can be one of the strongest relics in the game and makes things a lot easier because you're never reloading and never worrying about any downtime whatsoever with the DPS. Very constant, very nice, and makes for some fun builds. Next up, and we've got the Blood Box. After acquiring a relic, 50% increase to weapon power until 100 kills, 25% increase to weapon power afterwards. A really great one to pick up later on as opposed to early. Exactly the same again, and you've got the Crit Box. If you do get it later on, you're going to have a massive 100% increase to critical damage until you've reached that 100 kills. So hopefully you're not going to reach that 100 kills and you'll just stay on that 100% crit damage and gain yourself a massive damage buff. Next up, for those Vault Breakers that really want to enhance their skill power, this right here is the creme de la creme, the XRay Ram power chip. This will give you an increased skill power by 100%, and if you're really going into those skills, trying to do a lot of damage with them and trying to use them a lot over the course of a journey, this right here will be one of the things that will be really highly sought after because it will be one of the best things in slot. Next up, and another one that's just a standard relic, but obviously when you do get these set bonuses, they really come together, and that's the critical power chip. This one, since that update, has been boosted quite significantly by the end, and now as you can see on the right, you can get 40, 80, 120, 160 and finally 200% critical damage increase. If you're going for a crit build, especially if you're using any type of Vault Breaker that can constantly crit, say for example the Mountain after he's got his crit on his skills, this can really come in handy. and mean you do some absolutely amazing damage late game. Also, after you collect 3, 4 and 5, you're going to get 5%, 10 and 15% crit hit chance respectively, which again will really help your DPS. Another one to look out for if you're going for that weapon build is definitely XRay Rams. I have picked this up quite a few times and I've not been fortunate enough to get it as my reward at the end yet, but trust me, 100% boosted weapon power is just significant. It really will help you, and along with a few other things, like I said, if you've got a little bit of crit damage, this can really make your gun damage jump through the roof. For a gun build, definitely look out for this one. It will really make things a lot easier for yourself. Jumping over to this one, the Brawlers Gold Tooth. Probably aimed a little bit more towards your tank builds, the one that wants to be in your face and has a shield such as the Mountain and such. This is going to increase your damage by up to 25% the closer you are to the target. So like I said, if you're using those tanky Vault Breakers, this right here is going to be one of the best ones you can have, and along with your shield, it's going to mean that you've got 25% extra damage at all times because you're going to be constantly in their face. A really nice one to have on your build, and just a great increase that's always going to be there. Pretty much the exact same thing as that, except for the further away long distance version, so probably a little bit more suited to those faster moving Vault Breakers, such as lightning and such, is the Weak Spot Detector Scope. Increases damage inflicted on enemy target by 5% for 5 seconds and stacks up to 5 times. If you're constantly shooting, if you're constantly using your skills, this right here is pretty much going to be the same and mean you've got an almost constant uptime of 25% damage. Really good for those long range encounters. Next up, and I'm going to be going over all 3 of these because they're nice easy ones to chuck on, but health in this game is almost essential. An upgraded inner suit will give you 50% max HP. If you manage to get this one right here, the XRay Ram inner suit, it's going to give you a huge max HP of 30,000. Really nice on a lot of builds, especially if you're a bit of a squishy character. And again, just here, the prime inner suit, increase max HP by 100%. All of these are very highly sought after in the levels because they can really mean difference between being able to take a shot or not take a shot, and obviously even though they're not going to stop the one shots that you get in the game, they can well help you to survive a lot of encounters. Next up, and we've got the Life Up Defender. Again, probably only aimed towards that tanking class, but because it's a standard one, it's nice and cheap, and at max it can give you 30,000 extra health. For the money it costs, or for the cron should I say, this one is well worth investing in. Increases maximum HP by 300 when taking damage and stacks 100 times. Well worth it, and it can mean that you can just run out, bop yourself in a puddle of say goo or something along that lines, or just take a few beats from an enemy and then recoup your losses afterwards after you've got that massive buff to your health. Very much in the same vein, and you've got Critical Defender. Increases critical hit chance by 10% for 15 seconds when taking damage and can stack up to 5 times. Very much only aimed towards those tanky classes, but 50% at max is definitely nothing to overlook and is probably the biggest increase in the game to max crit hit, so well worth looking out for if that's what you're after and you're going into crit. Again, hand in hand with that, Attack Defender. Increase attack power by 2 when taking damage and stacks 100 times. This means you can get 200 attack power, which again is massive and well worth looking into if you know you're going to be taking a lot of damage and you're playing those tankier classes. These 2 right here are some of the best ones you can pick up for just nice easy upgrades. These 2 are just well worth having and pretty much any tanking build if you can manage to pick them up. Another quite underrated one is Big Shield Greaves. Generate shield equivalent to 25% of max HP for 15 seconds on perfectly timed survival skill. On some of your classes, for example the ones that have a lot of dodge, or your tanky classes where you're going to be using that survival skill very often, it means you're going to proc 25% of max HP 15 seconds very often. For a nice easy one to have, a nice cheap one, this one may well be one you want to pick up if you need a bit more survivability in your build. Just over here we've got Dodgegreaves. Increase critical hit chance by 25% for 5 seconds if no damage is taken in 5 seconds. If you're playing those classes that want to be a little bit further back, or you want to make sure that they hit really hard with their crit damage and you don't want to be in anything's face, Dodgegreaves can really help that out, and 25% extra increase to your crit can really go hand in hand with a lot of other things in order to make for a really strong damaging build. Next up, and we've got Doublegreaves, and although this doesn't sound amazing, it gives you 1 additional dash and teleport use and 30% max guard duration increase. Honestly, this has actually saved me a lot more times than I'd ever think it would, but whenever you can get an extra 1 to your actually class specific, that works perfect. This can really save your life, as can max guards, as can teleports if that's what your class is using. Without them, when they're down, that's probably most of the time you're going to be getting nuked. So if you can get extra ones in your build, it may well make you a lot more survivable. Even though it doesn't bring any DPS to the table, it may well be one of the best things you can put on if you're struggling to stay alive with any of your builds. Another one that's well worth looking into now since the recent patch is this one right here for boss target. Before, I believe it could only give you 10% all the way up to 50% extra damage to the boss, which is still really nice, but now since the recent patch, you're going to be getting 15%, 30%, 45%, 60% and finally 75% if you manage to get all 5 of them. Also additionally, it's going to give you 30,000 extra health if you manage to get all 5 of the set. Both of these are really great bonuses, and at almost double damage to bosses, it can really mean the difference between being able to burn them down in a nice timely fashion or just sticking around and being with them for an absolute age, as in this game most times the bosses are the ones that take you down with their kind of one-shot mechanics rather than the standard enemies in the game. Now this one here is probably one of my favourite ones in the game, and I've still not managed to unlock it. It just doesn't seem to come up for me. Whenever I get it, it doesn't unlock again at the end, which is a complete pain. But Charginggreaves, probably as a tank, again I know I've been mentioning them a lot, but it seems to get a lot of the good relics in this. This right here, as well as some of the other classes, if you're doing a lot of perfect timing with your survival skills, this means all of your skills reset. Reset all skill cooldowns on perfectly timed survival skill, dash, guard, etc. and then you can use all of your skills again. On the mountain, at one point I was managing to pull off 1.2, 1.5 million a hit or something along those lines with his big hits, and doing it constantly because I was just tapping that left trigger on the Xbox, making sure I was getting that perfect time survival skill. It was refreshing everything, and then I was going in and doing my skills over and over again. This one is one of the most overpowered relics in the game for certain builds if you're able to pull it off. Definitely one of the best ones I'd recommend in this game. Another great one to use is the Sniper Telescope, increasing damage by up to 25% the further you are from the target. So more aimed towards those DPS types that are further away, this is going to give you a massive boost to your damage and well worth chucking on if you can afford it. Again, Blood Knife right here is one that you may well want to chuck on if you're trying to get a lot of weapon power. This one increases it all the way up to 50% at max once you've hit that 100 kills. So obviously if you're only fighting bosses, not going to be the best ones. So third galaxy is probably a no-no with these type of things, but first galaxy and second galaxy, these can be really strong. Hand in hand with that, you've got the Power Knife, which does exactly the same thing but for your skill power. The other knife that I would definitely say is worth looking at would be the Critical Knife, 0.5% crit damage increase for every kill, a 100 max. So when you get 200 kills, you'll get 100% max critical damage, which is really strong, and again can really help certain builds if you're trying to burn things down, such as the bosses and such. If you're after that defense, there's nothing better than these 3 at the bottom right here. We've got the powerful defense suit, which jumps you by 50,000 defense increase. Really good. Pick it up if you're a tanky type or you're in trouble and you just need a bit of extra damage protection whenever you can. Even better than that, and you've got the XRay Ram defense suit, which gives you 100% defense increase. Next up, and we have the defense suit of Retaliation. Receive additional attack power equal to defense. This right here can be crazy good. If you're stacking a lot of defense because you don't like getting hurt too much, or because you're just not being able to take the damage, this will translate it and chuck it straight over into attack power, meaning you're going to do a lot of damage as well as being very tanky. One of my favourite ones in the game to put on a few of my builds. Now lastly, for the ones I'd recommend, and it's going to be the Charge module. Reduces skill cooldown by 2 seconds when a skill hits an enemy, and it can be activated every 3 seconds. This can be really nice for those skill builds if you're not able to get them down. This can be one way in which you can really help yourself out, and can mean you're using them very constant in certain playstyles. Well worth having or looking into on a few of the Vault Breakers. Now those are all the ones that I'd recommend, and I'd say they're probably some of the strongest ones in the game currently, well worth looking out for. Just a quick tip, these right here are ones that I would highly say until you get the playstyle down, or until they get a buff, or maybe none of those, these ones are the ones to avoid, and that's all of the necklaces. All of those just have a trade-off that I don't think's worth grabbing, to be perfectly honest. So the necklace of defense gives you 100% defense increase and recovers 1% of max HP every second. However, after you're knocked down a certain amount of damage, so say for example you've taken 70% damage, you're stuck at HP of 30% and you cannot regen it past there. It's not worth it in my eyes, and neither are any of the others. All of them are just really bad with the trade-offs, and I just don't think it's worth having. So this next one is 50% skill power increase. Every time you use a skill, it knocks 5% off your max HP. Next one, 30% all attack power increase with 30% max HP decrease. As you can see, all of them are just a bit of a pain. Maybe the only one you may well be able to work would probably be this one right here. 50% skill power increase with a 20% skill power cooldown. So as long as you have actually boosted your cooldown a bit, you may well be able to put this on. But even then, unless you have, and it will take a lot to work with, I would say avoid these at all costs and probably pick some other stuff up until they buff them. Or maybe I'm just using them wrong. Let me know in the comments if any of you guys and girls have managed to put them into a build and make it work. But for me, I would highly recommend grabbing the ones I've said and avoiding these, and just hopefully making a really nice build. Well, you guys and girls, no doubt I've taken up a lot more time than I should have, as per usual, but hopefully that'll show you what ones you should be looking out for, and you'll be able to make the game a little bit easier for yourself and crack through those galaxies. As always, for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, take care. I'll see you on next day.